Chizuru's kit has been revealed. So thank you to the Chaos Zero Nightmare livestream for doing that. These three creators are also on there, so thank you to them. I just took the screenshots that I wanted to show and put them into Microsoft Paint because I am a professional content creator. So we got a couple here that we will be using. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. First thing you're going to notice, Moonslash, her basic attack has 2 hits. I'm fairly confident we haven't seen a basic attack with 2 hits. I am wondering if this is one of the potentials, if it starts at like basic attack does 100% damage and then the potential is decreases it to 60% damage but 2 hits. If not, that would be kind of interesting. But that's kind of what I suspect, that the potential will do this, because otherwise then the potential is going to give it an additional effect, which seems kind of crazy. So that is a very cool thing. I like that. I mean, it means you're not really tempted to take these cards out anytime soon. I mean, that's a pretty nice card. I mean, especially given that if you're going to be buffing her, you know, you're like get any kind of morale, it's going to be kind of insane for a basic attack. But it's not going to get Epiphany, so it will probably eventually be cut in a perfect deck. But honestly, in Chaos runs, I'm probably not cutting it. Spirit Flame Ward, get rid of that card. You don't need it. Then we get to kind of her core mechanic. And what this character seems to be doing is basically being designed as a boss killer, kind of first and foremost, like maybe like a super OP single target that I think will struggle on fights with multiple characters, but they're actually going to be they might still be good, especially if they're like weak enough that she can just kill them anyway, but she's going to absolutely excel. So this says a 100% damage. It's an initiation, so this starts in your hand, right? Which is good, but like 100% damage, that sucks. But what doesn't suck is adding Curse Shackles. And then it says Curse Shackles add 1 hit. This is there's a few translations here that I don't fully grasp exactly what they mean. But we could go to Curse Shackles here. We have the card effects here for things that we haven't seen yet. So Curse Shackles, when an ally uses an attack card that includes herself other than a bind card on a target with Curse Shackles, Chizuru gains 1 Willow Wisp. When applied to a different target, you remove Curse Shackles. So you always can have Curse Shackles on one target, and every time they get hit with an attack, which means if an attack hits, if it's one card that hits 3 times, that will still be 3 hits, you get a Willow Wisp for each of those hits. What is Willow Wisp? Right below it. After you get 5, Willow Wisp does nothing. When you get 5 Willow Wisp, you get a Shadow of the Moon card. We will get to that in a second, but the main thing to know here is that Curse Shackle is a debuff, and it does not seem to have like a 1-turn restriction. It seems to be a permanent debuff on the enemy until you apply it to something else, basically. So this is going to start in your opening hand, and if you're going up against a big boss, you're going to target them, you're going to hit them with this, and they're going to have Curse Shackles the entire fight, which is really good. It will be weird if you have Curse Shackles on a guy, then you kill him, and then you haven't drawn this card, so you're not going to be able to easily do Curse Shackles on a second target. But the idea is it's the Curse Shackles add 1 hit. I don't know if this means it adds 1 hit to all of the attacks. That would be kind of weird in how insanely OP that would be if every attack in the game got an additional hit. So that part, it might just mean that it adds 1 Willow Wisp. I'm not 100% sure on this specific translation here, but I know what Curse Shackles does. So that is a really, really awesome effect. Then we get to this 0-cost skill. 2 Willow Wisp for each hit of the next attack card of this unit used. So the next time Chizuru attacks, based on how many hits, you're going to get 2 Willow Wisp each. So if you use something like this, you're going to get 4 Willow Wisp. If you use Oni Hunt, you're going to get 6 Willow Wisps, and every 5 you're going to generate this card. So this card seems reasonable. It seems pretty good, but because it doesn't have retain, you might, I guess it doesn't say until end of turn, right? It's until the next card is used. So this actually might be pretty darn good at getting a bunch of those stacks on. I was thinking it was until end of turn because a lot of Tressa's stuff is like that, but actually I'm kind of coming around on this card. I am excited to see what the epiphanies are for this. This doesn't strike me as the most powerful of her cards, but who knows? I might be proven wrong. It's a good Willow Wisp generator, and trust me, you want to generate Will of Wisps. And then we get the Bound at Dusk. At start of turn, gain Inhibit. What is Inhibit? It's actually the most interesting thing I think so far about her. First is a negative. You cannot gain AP except for the start of the turn or on Ravage. So when you like break an enemy, which means this will be the first character that is probably not very good with Mika. They like specifically made a not Mika character, basically. Like you're pretty much, you could still run Mika and then just remove this Inhibit card from your deck, but you probably don't want to, because the actual upside, the other side, is you add a hit to Shadow of the Moon and Shadow of the Moon Plus. Now keep in mind, Shadow of the Moon is what you are generating with the Willow Wisps, and this is going to be where her big damage comes from. So you're probably going to want to do that, because it's, guess what? More damage is more damage, which is very good. But the second part of this is kind of what confuses me. Decrease cost by 1 until 1 random cards of other combatants are used. Decrease cost of what by 1? Of this card? Does this mean this card is free if you use it the first turn? I don't know. It might mean the Shadow of the Moon is cheaper until 1 random cards of another combatant are used. Random of another combatant. It's not very clear to me what the second part of this means. I think this might be kind of a lousy translation, and to be honest, this game has been, I might have a reading comprehension of a 2-year-old, okay? But this game has had a lot of bad translations, right? A lot of things that aren't clear. You know, this word, it will be used, like this keyword will have 3 different names for it. Even on the same card, it could refer to the same thing. Combo on this card, on like gear bag, means one thing, but combo on this other card means something else. So I'm not really 100% sure what this does, but I still wanted to present it, because even then, just the Inhibit seems very powerful. On the Hunt, Oni Hunt, it's a haste card, one energy, 60% times 3 hits, and then plus 30% damage amount to the next bind card used. So bind is going to be kind of this is the peak of like what her kit does, and it'll all come together when we get to that card. But even baseline, 3 hits, 60%. It is funny that it's just an upgraded version of the basic attack, because it has haste and it has an additional hit, and then it has another additional upside. So it is a very good card. Triple hits are just powerful in general because of how much, like, again, if you're using Ray and you get a plus 20% passively on this character, like this is 380% hits, right? Because Ray at Awakening 6 or Ego 6 just does 20% damage, and you can get like 4 morale, and then suddenly this is hitting for just a huge amount. 3 hits is a very powerful thing. In general, and then it's going to add damage to the next bind card used. What is bind? So Shadow of the Moon, bind 1 and retain, which is very good because it would be hard to utilize without retain, I think. 50% damage. Well, that sucks. Plus 20% damage amount for each bind stack. So Shadow of the Moon is actually kind of a bad card on its own, but like, you're getting wisp stacks. What is bind? So bind is kind of an interesting keyword. When bind cards of this unit are in hand, they stack into 1 card. So if you had 2 of these, basically, you know, let's say you had one of these in your hand, and then you got to Willow Wisp 5 and you got a second one of these, it would just become a card with bind 2. And so then it would deal, you know, whatever, plus 40% damage, because it does damage for each bind stack, and it starts at bind 1. So I'm assuming it's actually going to do 70% damage, and then another, you know, the 40% would bring it up to 90% damage. But what's important is when you get to bind 3, the card actually transforms into a super good version of it, where it's baseline 70% damage, so it's already a buff, and it gets an additional hit, and it heals, and the rest is still the same. But what's really cool about this, one, it is unique, so you can't get multiple of these, so you're not going to be able to get like 3 of these in your hand. And I believe bind does go up to 5 stacks, is what it will say here. So you can get bind up to 5 stacks. So even if you get this card, you might want to hold it until you get up to bind 5. But the point is, this is basically when you're okay using the card once it gets to bind 3. So this is kind of how it's going to go, right? I actually, because of the way this works, I assume that you can add a Shadow of the Moon to your hand. That's what I'm assuming. There's cards that generate it, but it would be weird for her to have 4 base cards like always, and then only 3, right? So I assume that you can get this card as an epiphany, but you also can generate this card, which would be a very interesting thing. I don't believe there's a character that can get a card as an epiphany, but even without that, can still generate it baseline. So it's a little bit weird in that regard. I'm not exactly sure how that'll work, because I highly doubt she only has 3 super epiphanies and then has a generated card. That would be insanely OP probably, because you'd be way more likely to get the good epiphanies earlier. But that being said, turn 1, you're probably going to use Bound at Dusk. Again, I don't fully understand exactly what the second part of this does, but the Inhibit is going to add an extra hit to these cards, right? So even this card that seems like it's not that good is going to go up to 2 hits, and this is going to go up to 3 hits, so it's going to be just stronger than Oni Hunt. Then you're going to use Chromatic Flames, which is going to do the Curse Shackles. Then ideally, you are going to have someone, if you're just relying on her for all your damage, you could just use things like Moonslash. But this is going to basically stick, right? So you could use things like Tressa and throw a bunch of daggers, and each of these daggers is going to get you a Willow Wisp. Every time you get to 5 Willow Wisp, you're going to get this card. So then you're basically going to start wailing into this really, really big, the big enemy that you're facing, getting with an emphasis on doing lots of multiple hits to get as many Willow Wisp stacks as you can. And then once you get up to 5, you're going to get a Shadow of the Moon. Maybe you draw one and you get up to 2 bind. And so once you get to 3 bind, this is kind of your finisher, what you want to use. And you might still wait to use this again until it gets up to 5, because it does just get more damage. And you might want to save it up for a little bit. But it is worth noting, Curse Shackles won't get Willow Wisp from using this card, but it should still from this card here, because this is a separate kind of effect. So if you get this up to 2 hits, 3 hits, you get this up to 3 hits, maybe 4 hits, depending on if this Curse Shackles just adds an extra hit to it, then you're going to be able to get a absolute ton of Willow Wisps. And I maybe even use like one of these, then generate another one, try to get this going every single turn. End of the day, it sounds like she's going to be an absolutely absurd single target damage dealer, which is, to me, she feels kind of like I haven't played her yet. She kind of reads like a power crept Tressa in some ways. Tressa does some of the best single target damage in the game. Tressa is going to work much better with characters like Hugo, whereas this character is going to probably work good with like Tressa, and probably going to be like the number, like Ray is going to be really, really good with her as well. So I'm not sure if she is actually going to be stronger than Tressa, but I'm kind of hoping she is in a sense, because like, why would I want a 5-star that's worse than my 4-star? But at the same time, they're different, right? Tressa is all about using a lot of cards, and this character is about using several cards, but really it's about getting a lot of hits on a few cards. So even Tressa might have to use like 8, 9, 10 cards in a turn to get her full effect. This character is not about using 10 cards in a turn necessarily. They are about using a few cards, but getting a lot of hits out of those cards in general, which I think is slightly stronger. They even have a really powerful haste card here. The really powerful basic attack. Just seems like an overall all-star. So we went through all the card effects, right? What Bind does, what Inhibit does, what Curse Shackles do, what Willow Wisp does. Her ego skill also is Moonlight of High Tide. 250% damage. It is, again, single target. I'm not super impressed with this so far, but for each Shadow of the Moon card created, you get 50% damage up to 10. So I am assuming because of this plus, that means that it is additive, which means this goes from 250 to 750. Maybe it's not quite that bad. So this doesn't super impress me. It is only 5, which is like pretty reasonable for just dealing a bunch of damage. And maybe the scaling is closer to Magna's, right? Magna gets like 1,000, 1,200% on her stuff if you get up to 10 stacks of her counterattack. So maybe this is actually not additive. Maybe this is like multiplicative, where it, like actually every 50% is actually 125%, and this actually goes up to like 1,000, 1,200% plus. Then it's kind of like busted at how much damage it could do. I still kind of wish it felt more like it made sense with her kit. It does, because it gets stronger as you do the things she wants to do, but I kind of wish this maybe had a slightly different skill where it hit multiple times. Like every Shadow of the Moon used, get an additional hit or something. That way it kind of like fed into this multi-hit thing. But this does feel more like an execution, which is fine. It's cool. I don't really love the flavor of the ego skill, but I mean, it seems good enough, right? I mean, anything that's not Luke's is probably good enough. So yeah, very, very cool kit. Very exciting character for me personally. I mean, probably the best single target damage dealer in the game. So now that we have we have a maxed out, now that we have Yuki, who's a very good AoE, now we're getting a very good single target. We're probably going to get a very good support as the next character, and they will probably all work together pretty well in a team. Although I'm not sure this character and Yuki work in super well together, but Yuki does have a few, like her Ice Cleave will hit twice in an AoE. So, that absolutely could work together, but this definitely feels like this will be a Ray and Tressa team. I mean, they showed a couple examples, right? You could use like Cassius with her to kind of help, you know, Cassius is good with every DPS because you can get to the other character's cards quicker. But this is, I'm very interested because this character is pretty unique in a lot of ways. Between having a basic attack with multiple hits, having a card that will allow you to generate a card that you can also add to your deck passively, I'm assuming, at least you could get one card copy from an Epiphany, in addition to being maybe the only character that's not going to be inherently good with Mika. It's a lot of just very interesting stuff, and we'll go over it a bit more once we actually get to play with the character, pull it, see her in game, and build her. Like, I'm going to play her a lot. And then I'll have a much better thing. But this was like a kit reveal, so I thought it was very exciting. At this point, it is speculation, but I do hope they clean up some of these to be a little bit more clear. But again, if you think I'm just dumb, let me know in the comments down below. If you know what this does and I'm just being stupid, and if you know what Curse Shackles add 1 hit means. I wonder if this means if this card gets 1 more hit. So if they first time you apply Curse Shackles, and then if they already have Curse Shackles, this hits twice. That would make more sense to me. Yeah, that probably is what that is. So if you watched the beginning and commented, now you probably feel like a fool. Anyway, guys, that's all for this one. Let me know what you think about the character down below. Much love. Per Platypus is per Platypus. I will see you on the flip-flops. Bye.